The Currently podcast is produced and recorded at Born in June Creative Studios in Los Angeles. Born in June Creative helps movers and shakers tell their stories. Welcome to the Currently podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Aime. We're here for a deep dive into current events, culture shifts, personal development, and social good, in conversation with me and interesting people from all walks of life. This show was created to make us think a little bit more about life's biggest questions, the world we want to create, and what this moment in time means for our generation. Let's leave the small talk behind and make sense of the now together. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of The Currently. I hope everyone's had a great few weeks planning and being thoughtful about how they're going to spend their time this 2018. I know I have. And one of the things that I've actually been very into lately is meditation. I've always known that it's super important, but in the past few weeks, to be honest with you guys, I've had some difficulties after the wedding. I think it was a day of extreme high and there was a lot of adrenaline going into it. But the month of December, I kind of experienced a little bit of a lull, I confess. I sat on my couch for about a week in a mini state of depression, which is something that I look out for considering that I have depression issues or I've had them in the past. And so one of the things that I started doing very thoughtfully pretty much since October, when I felt myself sinking a little bit, even in the lead up to the wedding, was I started meditating. And so I feel the universe always brings people into your life or knowledge into your life just at the time when you need it. So when I was offered the opportunity to have Devi on the show, I definitely jumped at it because Devi is, aside from being a radio and television personality, she is the founder of Karma Bliss, a brand specializing in tools designed to kickstart your self-discovery journey, including healing collections, healing crystal jewelry, and she's really big on meditation. She actually trained at the Deepak Chopra Center, and we talk about that on the show. And most recently, she's the writer of a book called Crystal Bliss: How to Attract Love, Feed Your Spirit, and Manifest Your Dreams. And she's introducing self-care rituals that are of utmost importance for women, for young women, for women who are on the career track, women who are managing home, life, relationships, family, parents, friends. And I really love the conversation that we got to have for the show. And she has some exciting stuff. You guys, she just came back from New York this past weekend. She was presenting with the self-care goddess herself, Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't call her the goddess, other people do. And she was a part of one of the Goop events that they had in New York City. And she actually just started selling Karma Bliss bags of healing crystals at Nordstrom. So if you go to Nordstrom.com and you look up Karma Bliss, you can actually buy some of the crystals. The book is full of mantras. It talks about what crystals are good for what, like citrine is good for confidence, quartz for balance. And actually, I had a girlfriend just ask me this weekend, hey, does anybody know anything about crystals? So if you've been curious about crystals, if you're curious about meditation and the benefits that it brings, Devi and I have a really frank conversation. Devi is obviously a very accomplished woman, and she talks about how she kind of changed her mindset about always hustling and sacrificing sleep to stay ahead at work and be the best that she could be, to really thinking about how she works smarter, not harder, and how she's able to still kick ass at work and at home and everywhere else where she wants to be successful, but also maintaining balance and structure. And meditation and some of these self-care rituals that she talks about are a really integral part of how she has achieved that. And those are things that I can attest have also helped me. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of my mental health and kind of what went on during the month of December and what's been happening since then. If you read my newsletter, which you shameless plug can sign up for on my website, betsyime.com, I've talked a little bit more about it. But I think that one of the things that's super important that Devi and I talk about is kind of this journey of self-awareness where we recognize ourselves, we recognize our symptoms, we recognize when we need to fill our own cups. And that's something that I talk about all the time. I think because it's something that I have personally struggled with throughout a big chunk of my life. And I think because there is such a push to always be doing, work harder, hustle, the grind never sleeps. This capitalistic society puts a lot of pressure on us to always be producing. And I think as humans, we're not machines and we can't be set to that standard and we can't set ourselves up to that standard. I had lunch with a girl who was once my intern who's in college, and I talked to her a little bit about that. I talked to her about feeling guilty about taking time for ourselves, and that can start as simply as having a ritual for ourselves, like 10 minutes of meditation. And if you do crystals, and after listening to Devi, I guarantee you'll want to learn more about crystals. And I really encourage you to buy her book. I had a chance to read it in preparation for the interview, and it's really amazing. And it's very clear and concise and to the point. And you can kind of even just go in there and look, okay, this is the issue I'm having. This is a crystal I want. This is a crystal I need. And this is a history behind it. And she has affirmations that go with every single crystal, but that you can also use on your own. I digress, but having that ritual for yourself is something that can be, if that's the only time you have for yourself, you need to really take it. And Tony Robbins, who I've talked about in the past on the show, he says that if you don't have 15, 20 minutes for yourself, then you're doing life all wrong. And I really agree. And I know that everybody has different situations, and, trust me, I have a special needs child and a mother and a father and a partner, and I know there's so many directions that we get pulled into. So one of the things that's been working with me for meditation is that I actually do it either really early in the morning. So I wake up like at 5 o'clock in the morning and get it done then, or I do it right before to bed, or I do it kind of in the middle of the day where it's a little bit quiet because I work from home. And I was talking to another girlfriend. As you can hear, I've been talking to a lot of people about this. And she was telling me that one of the things she's going to do, because she does work at an office, is that she is going to close her door and just meditate for 10 minutes. You can even go to the car, or you can go for a walk. There's walking meditations. I'm a big fan of the Calm app, but there's also Headspace. And then there's also a bunch of different resources. I mean, if you just Google YouTube meditation videos, or, abundance meditation, which I've done a few in the past, there's so many. So I think there's free resources out there for you. And I really encourage that you find the thing that works for you. Josh, who's been on the show, he does, he listens to music, and there's certain music that kind of puts him in the mood, and music is a thing for him. For me, I need kind of that quiet, calm space. So I take that for myself. And I think it's super important that we all do that. There's so much noise going around. There's so much going around on social media. There's so much news and hopelessness. And so we really need to have a counter to that. And especially those of us who are prone to anxiety, depression, we really need to go above and beyond to care for ourselves so we can ultimately be there for the people we love and just have a better life. I'm excited to share this episode with you. I'm excited for the new year and for the show. I have a lot of good ideas. I have some cool guests that are booked. Thank you so much to everybody for your response on the Financial Latina episode. I'm really excited that everybody enjoyed that. As always, you can find me on Instagram. I've been sharing a little bit about my own self-care rituals, my meditation, my Palo Santo, and all that good stuff on my Instagram, Betsy I Missy. You can make sure and follow me there. I'm also releasing a newsletter this week to kind of summarize everything that went on in the podcast and some of the pieces that I've been writing. I've been really good about publishing on my blog, on my site, BetsyIMid.com, pretty much once a week. So there's some good content and thoughtful stuff going on there. If you liked the episode with Natalie about finances, I'm actually going to be releasing a piece along with the newsletter where we talk about kind of some of the best resources for finance that Natalie likes, some that I like, and I'm actually also giving away a copy of her book, Financially Savvy Latina in 20 Minutes, and it's a really great mini tool where you can learn about budgeting and everything else. So as you can see, I got you covered. I got your finances covered. I got your self-care covered. We're going to be talking about Latinx identity in the next few weeks. I'm also going to be a guest on a few really cool podcasts that I can't wait to share with you. All right. I've been going on for way too long. I don't want to delay any longer. Let's get to the interview. I want to welcome to the Currently podcast, Devi Brown. I'm so excited to have her here. She is amazing, and I've spent a lot of hours in preparation for this interview reading her book, Crystal Bliss, Attract Love, Feed Your Spirit, Manifest Your Dreams. It's an amazing and informational read on all things wellness, mindfulness, crystals, chakras. So I'm excited to dig in and talk a little bit about the book. And I'm also excited to talk about Devi's personal story. And she's had an amazing journey, a very successful career in radio. I'm going to brag a little bit about you, Devi. I'm going to read some of the praise that was written in the book about you. It says, from the instant you meet Devi, she gives off a calming yet positive and infectious energy. And then there's another one here. Devi Brown is known for getting some of the biggest names in hip hop, Kendrick Lamar, Big Sean, Nicki Minaj, to name a few, to open up about their personal struggles. Now she's sharing her journey from music to meditation. She's a certified teacher, certified with a Deepak Chopra.
Yes.
Is that? Yeah.
Chopra Center.
Yeah. Getting real about building a business and showing everyone how to find their own bliss. So you probably can share some interview tips with me after we're done recording then, right? Because I'm still fairly new at this. So, and it definitely is an art form, as I've been discovering and learning through the course of the show. So Devi, tell me your life story in 1 minute. I'm just kidding. Tell me about your amazing career in radio and hip hop, and how all that got started.
Oh, wow. I started in radio really young. I was about, I think, 18 or 19 years old. I was going to school, and I had this opportunity to kind of join a friend on a show that he was starting, which was an internet-based radio show. And though like now it's amazing because all of us can have our voices heard in many ways, at that time, it was like 2004. Nobody was doing an internet show because most of us still had like dial-up modems, and it was just a different time. And that's kind of where I first dug in, and we kind of started building a little name for ourselves. And I realized how in love with talking to people and learning about people I was. So I ended up getting an internship at a radio station here in Los Angeles, and just kind of climbed my way up. And eventually, I worked enough to where I got my own show, and I had the beautiful opportunity to work in different markets. I've had radio shows in LA, also in New York and in Houston, and be able to branch out and do a little TV, primarily in the hip hop space. So it's been amazing. My favorite thing about it is, yes, I get to interview different people I'm fans of, or different artists or actors, but the best part is really helping people connect with their fans by saving space for them to tell their stories, and then also connecting with your listeners on a daily basis and being able to, learn about them, bond with them, teach them, learn from them. So I've been doing that for a long, long time now.
Yeah. And I feel like you built such a strong connection with your audience that I was actually reading that Houston has a day after you. I think it was May 26th. They declared it Devi Brown Day, which I think speaks to the way you connected with your audience.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was such an honor. Like, Houston was just such an incredible place to do radio. And it's just a town. I mean, amazing people are everywhere, but there's just something in the water in Houston, like the level of friendliness, the level of just kind of joy. It's just a really beautiful place to work in that type of medium or broadcasting of any kind. So especially in Houston, aside from my regular radio show, which was, centered around music and centered around more entertainment based, I also did the community show there, which aired on Sundays. So I had a chance to really like dig my heels in out there and, work side by side with a lot of people creating change in those communities. So that was just a very humbling moment to get my day there, and just truly a blessing.
Yeah. And I think, and we'll get into this later, but I feel like giving back to the community and finding a higher purpose in giving to others is another way I think that we can remain feeling fulfilled. And it gives us a sense, I think that being a part of something bigger than ourselves is something that for me has been incredibly useful in terms of finding balance or finding joy in our life, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's the purpose of life, like being of service to others. It's the purpose of life for me, that in kind of the way I see the world. And there really is no true joy or true love if you're not doing that in some way.
Yeah. And so tell me, as you were obviously having this amazing and successful career and navigating the media landscape, was mindfulness, meditation, and crystals, was that something that was already a part of your life, or did that come later?
So it's always been something that I've been like really fascinated by. I mean, I think for all of us, no matter what you're into now, anything that you're passionate about, you kind of see patterns where at some point in your younger self, you were intrigued by it or it came up. And then maybe you forgot about it and then rediscovered it. And I think for me, I've always been fascinated about self-improvement. I'm an only child. I'm raised by a single parent. That kind of upbringing really lends itself to a lot of self-awareness and self-inquiry, a lot of time spent in your own mind and in your own heart. So I was always intrigued by that stuff. I always kind of strove to live a life where I practiced self-care, though I didn't necessarily use that terminology.
Yeah.
But then kind of I got to a point where I was working so much, and you're kind of following what society tells you, which is like, work your fingers to the bone and then you'll have success. And, or especially like in this day and age, what you hear is like young professional women, it's like, get out there and take over and hustle, and the grind never stops, rise and grind. And, all of this stuff that is telling you, hey, don't sleep and don't take care of yourself. And that was really me. Like, every chance I got, I was like trying to outwork everyone, trying to have more hours than everyone, trying to, create and build and get promoted and, all of these things, that you think are supposed to be the laid out steps to the life of your dreams, and To win. I think the goal was to win, to make great money, to get to the top of my profession, to, just build and build and build your empire. And then take on new things. And I think, and all that's dope. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. Like, we should all be great.
Yeah.
But not at the expense of things that just matter more. And a lot of that comes with age. You don't know what you don't know. You don't, like, when you're in your 20s, especially, you don't know how to truly prioritize because you don't really know what's important yet. That kind of, that thought process really evolves, and you start to see the world differently just as years go by. But I was, and I say this a lot, but it's exactly what it was. I was wearing my stress as a badge of honor. Like, the more stressed out and frazzled I was, I was proud of it. Like, I remember one time I hadn't slept in 48 hours because we were working some event. I think we had like a big concert, and at that time my commute was really far. And I remember I started hallucinating on the freeway in my car.
Oh my God.
And I started like seeing things. So it's like 3 a.m. and I'm driving home, and I'm like swerving, and there's no one else on the freeway with me. And like my eyes started twitching, and I was like, oh my God. But I remember at that time, I was like, man, I worked so hard. Like, look, I'm kind of going crazy.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. But it wasn't like scary. I was like, oh man, look at me go. But then shoot forward, it just became out of control. And, for me, and I talk about this in a few times when I speak, especially to women, like I went to the doctor because it seemed like I was getting like, I don't know if it was like a rash on my side or like eczema, but I was like, what is this? And I started getting really bad shooting pain, like through my nerves. And I went to the doctor, and she was like, oh my God, you have shingles. And for those that don't know what shingles is, and I'm not a doctor, but it's like kind of a virus that lays dormant in you ever since you had chickenpox. It's part of the chickenpox family. But typically, and all of us have it living dormant in us. And if you're lucky, it never shows itself. But typically, that's the disease that really affects some of our elderly people. So you don't see it till your 70s, your 80s, if you do get it. So I was in my mid-20s and I got it.
Oh my God.
And my doctor was like, this is 100% brought on because of stress. You need to change your life. And, for anybody that's listening that's had shingles, it is like incredibly painful. And it's the type of pain you can't take medication for. So you just have to wait it out. So I was just in the worst pain for weeks and weeks. And finally it let up, and I was like, I never want to be there again. I never want to be so consumed with what I do that my body starts fighting me, you know?
Yeah, it's like your body was demanding that you stop or slow down or pay attention to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's kind of for me to bring it back to your question, sorry, I'm long-winded, but to go from being intrigued my whole life and interested in learning about different methods of self-discovery to actually taking it the next step from intellectualizing it to applying it. And I started really just diving into really learning about myself, learning about techniques and things that could help me be a better person, help me feel more peace in my life, elevate the quality of my life. And for me, that came through meditation. I ended up going on this incredible retreat with Deepak Chopra's Chopra Center, which is in Carlsbad, California. Mm-hmm. And it was like a 10-day detox retreat. And walking in, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, detox, I'll probably be drinking hella juice and like doing yoga. Okay, cool. And I got there and I learned this type of meditation called primordial sound meditation. And it changed my entire life, that 10 days there. It changed everything. It taught me so many new tools about how to center myself, how to find peace, how to become a seeker. And after that, I was just wide open for all of it. And I ended up for the next, several years kind of just really diving into that rabbit hole. And I did a lot of retreats. I traveled a lot. I read a lot. I learned a lot. And most importantly, I practiced meditation every day. And everything about how I treated myself and how I really saw the world and my place in it completely changed.
Wow, that's very powerful. And so in the middle of this transformation, you're still working radio. And were you able to then find a different type of balance, or how did you approach then to your work and this idea of the hustle? How did that shift for you?
Yeah. It's such a cliche saying, but the work smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. That kind of like became my new way of approaching things. Like, yes, I definitely still worked hard. You can't really get away from that. But just the way I took things on was different. And the way I treated myself was different. I think, we always assume the first thing you have to give up is sleep, but then you have to find other ways to recharge yourself and other things to do. So I just started being more mindful with the amount of things I was taking on, the amount of stress I was taking on, or other people's drama I was taking on. Because that's a whole lot of it too. It's not just what we're doing at work. It's also like, what conversations when you do have free time are you opening yourself up to? Yeah. What kind of things when you have moments are you choosing to do? And that kind of really shifted for me. The type of relationships I allowed in my life changed for me. The type of things I would do when I was finally off the clock completely changed for me. And I just prioritized myself a lot more. I think, diving into self-discovery, figuring out really the depths of who you are, embracing yourself no matter what those depths look like, that to me is the key to any level of success. Because when you start to do that, everything else opens up. And that was a really big lesson for me, because before you're taught to just keep showing up, keep working hard. But when you become the type of person inside and out that you've always dreamed of, so much falls into your lap that you used to be so chaotically running towards. It kind of effortlessly finds you.
Yeah, it goes from a place of seeking to a place of flow, right? Where things are flowing into your life and you don't feel like you're constantly striving towards things.
Totally.
And I think there is a part of us that's very programmed towards that, like the hustle. Or I listen to a lot of speakers, and a lot of them, sometimes men, they boast about sleeping 4 hours and I have had to find a space where you kind of pick and choose and you take the advice that works for you. And I'm with you. Like, sacrificing sleep is something that I feel the health effects in the long term are not worth the potential rewards. And that's because I had a, not in radio, but I had a career in politics, and I also worked really hard. I remember I was working on a presidential campaign at a point, and I was working like 16-hour days. And, after a few years of this kind of constant go, 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 I eventually, there came a point where I couldn't get out of bed anymore. I was in a severe depression, burnout mode, and it took me a really long time to get out of that space. And that's when I started doing more work and being more intentional about personal development and thinking about how I thought about my time. And to your point, how hard it can be for us. We realize how often we are doing things for other people or because we cannot say no to other people, whether it's, friends or family or just the emotional labor, I think, that we do as women, emotionally taking care of other people. And that can also take a toll aside from everything else that we do at work. So this is really fascinating. So tell me when the crystals became more of a role.
And, just really quick, I want to add for people listening, there's a season for everything. So I'm not saying you have to get 8 hours of sleep a night, no matter what, there's a season for everything, but you have to you can't be completely obsessed with the grind, just a couple of days ago, I had this really, really big project I was working on. So for 3 days in a row, I hardly got any sleep. I was up at the crack of dawn working until the wee morning hours for 3 days. And then I said, okay, I'm done. No more.
I'm going to take a day.
And then I got to, So, you just kind of you have to make sure to make the time that you give yourself a lot bigger and a lot longer than those moments where you're in super grind mode. There has to be a balance.
Yep. And if you empty your cup, you have to set aside time to fill it back up.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God. So with crystals, I kind of, I think when and I hope people listening can relate to this. When you're starting a journey of any kind, you start finding other things that kind of go along with that theme really easily. Or how when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you've never noticed it before, but you're on the freeway and you see the car you're driving everywhere, because now it's on your radar. So when I kind of started with meditation, I just started easily seeing the things that I was drawn to help me grow and to bring me great energy, very effortlessly. And kind of in that world, you're just naturally put around these things. So when I kind of started using crystals, at first I'm super drawn to them. I'm drawn to their energy. People are telling me about them. But then I realized when I was a kid, I was obsessed with rocks.
Wow.
I used to collect rocks all the time as a little girl. I didn't call them crystals then. They were just rocks, and that went for rocks outside that I thought were interesting looking to, I remember being at, I think it was at a children's museum of some sorts. And we were on a field trip. And I remember in the gift shop, there was this little baggie of colorful tumbled stones that you could fill up your bag and pay $5, and I was like, oh my God, I have to have this. And I remember I bought those little rocks with my allowance, and I would go home and I would pour them out and just feel them and look at them and put them back. And I would do that all the time. Then, of course, life gets in the way. I completely forgot about all of this stuff. And when I was, kind of on this meditation journey, a girlfriend named Linda gifted me this beautiful piece of citrine, a pendant. And at the time, I didn't know much about it, but I just remember her telling me oh my God, wear this every day. This is going to help you. And I was like, oh,
And I see that the stone of success.
Yeah. And, you're not fully versed on certain things, when people that you respect and love give you insight into something, it feels magical. I remember feeling this was some magical thing that was going to change my life, and I remember as soon as I started wearing it, I felt the energy shift. And I was like, God, this is so interesting. And what I noticed was, for me, citrine, which is known as the stone of success, it's a stone that gave me a high level of confidence as I plowed through my stuff. When you start your journey of self-discovery, it is not peace and flowers and puppies. It's
Yeah.
hard. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming, because in order to find peace, in order to find the deepest parts of who you are, you have to unlearn so much, and you have to kind of plow through all these type of thoughts and limitations that you've put on yourself. And that can be a lot to confront, especially all at once. So at that point, I was definitely into self-discovery, but I was getting kind of tired, And when I started working with Citrine, I noticed that for me, it helped shift my energy from that tired place to this kind of confident walking in my destiny, knowing that obstacles are a part of life and not feeling any judgment towards them. So when I started feeling that energy, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I started, just learning about it, which then got me completely obsessed. And I started picking up every crystal everywhere. And, my, just like, I was like, oh, this is for that. Yep. Getting that. This is for that. Okay. You too. And I just became like really,
you had your new bag of rocks now.
Yeah. Right. And crystals became a big part of my meditation practice too. I would meditate with them. I would wear them. I would set my intentions on them. I would keep them close. And for me, the energy manifested itself in ways that I can't really describe or quantify, but ways that have changed me.
And so tell me what that looks like for people who maybe aren't super familiar. So that means that you meditate and you have your crystals next to you, you're holding them, or tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, quite often during meditation, I'm holding a crystal or I'm keeping them with me. At my house, I kind of created a little meditation space, which you totally don't have to do because you can meditate anywhere with absolutely nothing and get great benefits. But I created just this little cove of things that make me feel really good. It's very cozy. And that's where I choose to meditate every day. And I keep, some of the crystals that I'm currently using in my meditation practice near me and handy.
Yeah.
But I'm also a crystal super connoisseur. So I have crystals all over the house.
Yeah, you talk about that in the book. And then you also talk about that there's a process to actually clean them. So we won't go into it for the sake of time. But I feel like your book, for anybody who wants to get started with crystals, is a great primer. And you give a lot of really good instructions on not just, what each crystal, the energy of each crystal, but also, how to use them to manifest and mantras that go with it, with all of them. So I definitely encourage everybody to get the book because it has a plethora of information on how to get started on your crystal journey. And you go into some of the many benefits for mental health and different energy sources that you can access through crystals. So I learned so much from reading the book. And another thing you talk about chakras. So how do chakras play into all of this?
Yeah, so chakras I included in the book. I have it in chapter 14 towards the end of the book because I know that kind of word and terminology comes up a lot for people. And I know that people that work in the crystal healing space usually do a lot of really beautiful energy work by placing stones in different chakras. So just like a quick overview, chakra is rooted in a Sanskrit word that means wheel, cycle, and it's kind of translated to be a spinning wheel of light and energy. And it is believed that we have these going through our bodies. We tend to focus, especially in the Western world, on 7 specific chakras that kind of start with your crown chakra right above your head all the way to the root, which is underneath your feet, pretty much if you're visualizing it. And basically, these are areas that really move energy through you. And it's really important that they're in balance and in harmony. So sometimes you might hear cleansing your chakras, or tuning your chakras. I like to do that a lot with I have this really big quartz singing bowl that helps me to feel really detoxed and just aligned. So it's important to keep your chakras in alignment, clear out any blockages. You can do that with crystals, especially if you're doing crystals on your physical body are really, really great for that.
Wow, that's amazing. And then you also go into the book into using sage or palo santo for smudging or just for cleaning the energy. And I thought that was a really quick, I think that's something that I've done in the past, or a practice I started doing because I work from home, and I have found to really enjoy that. And so you also go into that into the book. So there's just like so many like cool tips. So I want to know, because I think one of the challenges can be people want to meditate, but I was talking to our girlfriend last week. She's like, I just can't meditate. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? She's like, well, my mind, I can't quiet my mind.
Yeah. I love when people say that. I, of course, said that too. I don't know any person who has never not said that when starting their meditation journey. And I think like each of us, when we're kind of nervous about getting into meditation, we think that is just a unique thing to us. But the fact is, if you break it down really by science, we each as living human beings think between 2,000 and 5,000 thoughts a day. So the idea that you're not going to think is silly. It's kind of just still choosing to create a space for yourself anyway. If you can take 15 to 45 minutes to scroll every day, I know that's like the first thing a lot of us do when we wake up. It's wake up and scroll, see what you missed. You can have time to just sit still and be quiet. And it's just so interesting that so many of us start off being so fearful of that. What is so scary about sitting still? What's so scary about being quiet, And you think, oh, well, I'll just keep thinking, or I'll get bored, or I'll get fidgety. Yeah, that's okay. Sit anyway. For people who are first getting started, I highly recommend just commit to yourself to not move for 20 minutes from your space, to not open your eyes. Whatever that manifests itself into, release the judgment. You'll get to a point after continuing to do it where you're able to click off your thoughts. Now, that doesn't mean that when I'm meditating for 25 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon, that thoughts don't come up for me. Of course they do. The thoughts can be really anything, even good ones. But it's just saying, I'm going to release this thought. I'm going to choose to stop thinking this thought. Now, even if that only lasts for a second before you start thinking a new thought, that's okay. You're not going to be in a space, especially not when you start, where your mind is just 100% clear, And that's okay. But it's committing to that moment of stillness and silence that kind of begins to open up the way you see the world, the way you treat yourself.
And I think the key word here is that it's a practice, which I think the word itself implies that you try it every day. It's like if you take anytime you take up something new, you're not going to be is great at it, or you're not going to get an A, because I think sometimes we're all striving to, I need to do it right. I need to do it right. And I've been, I've embraced meditation in the past year, and especially in the last few weeks consistently. And it's like you said, like thoughts come in and then I release them. In my case, I have to do guided meditations. I'm not in a place where I can just kind of sit and guide myself. So the Calm app has really been helping me to kind of get some of these fundamental practices. And I was telling my husband, I said, even if it's like I got clarity for a minute, or I was able to like really be still for 1 minute out of the 10 minutes that I attempted to be in that space, like to me, that I consider that a success, because that's like 2 minutes I wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Absolutely. And it adds up. Deepak Chopra has done some incredible research. He's also a medical doctor, aside from being, really just a wellness guru. He's done incredible research where he has been, over the past few years, monitoring people's brain waves, like people who have just started meditating to avid meditators. The moment you start physically, you see a complete difference in your brain waves. You see a complete difference in your blood pressure and your heart rate and all of these things the very second you begin your meditation. So it's like like you said, even if it's only a minute out of that 25, that's a minute where you are just, creating so much opportunity.
Yeah.
For your
and
life.
I still feel like, to your point, when I open my eyes, even if I was having this internal struggle with my thoughts, kind of like, okay, thought, go away, or yes, I see that thought, I'm going to let it float away. I still have a different I'm on a different emotion or, vibrational level, I think, as I've heard say, than I was before I started. So I want to know what the practice looks like for you. Is it you wake up in the morning and you do your meditation and your crystals? What are some of your rituals, and how have you made this into a consistent practice? Because I think I'm one of those people that I can try something new for a week, but the issue is the consistency.
Yeah, I think consistency is tough. And even when you do it all the time, it can still be a challenge depending on what's going on in your life. On my best days, I usually will wake up, brush my teeth, kind of do a little bit of stretching. And then before I do anything else, before I get dressed, before I go downstairs and, let my dogs out, I try to get at least 20 minutes of meditation in. And for me, that's just like sitting comfortably, closing my eyes, beginning my meditation practice. Sometimes it might include holding a crystal or just having them around. And then I kind of get moving and I go through my day. But that to me, it's recommended, especially in primordial sound meditation, that you meditate twice a day, once in the morning, once early evening. Even if you're not able to do the second, because I think that can, for some people, feel a little intimidating. When you do it, when you first wake up, it changes everything. And I mean, when you first get up, not after you've scrolled, not after you've checked emails, not after you've gotten a lay of the land of what your day is going to be. Do it first, and it sets the tone for just having a really kind of open, stress-free, beautiful day.
Okay. I'm guilty of what you described. Like first I get the lay of the land of my day, and then, a few hours into my day, I do it. So I'm gonna commit to doing it first thing and see what the difference is.
I really believe you will see and feel an immediate shift.
Yeah, because it sets the tone for the day instead of like reading like what crazy stuff is going on in DC with who, which is how I normally start my day, and not a good way to start the day. Yeah, and I think this year is actually like.
Oh my God, that's definitely not the way to start
this year, and I was just reading, somebody wrote a review of your book, and they talked about the importance of really having these self-care rituals when it seems like the world can feel very hostile, especially for people of color, and a lot of underserved communities. I feel like it can seem like a really hostile world, and so if we're not careful of putting ourselves in a mindset where, I never want to be removed from the reality of it, but where we're constantly only in the space of like the negative things that are happening, I think it can start to affect our mental health. I definitely feel I experienced that, a little bit of that, especially right after the election.
Yeah. We're all experiencing such a high level of being overwhelmed, like really in a way that has never happened before, because at all times our senses are overloaded. Yeah. So we have to be really, really, really mindful about, especially, and I can't stress it enough, that stillness and that silence, because as every generation continues to come, we have less and less of it built into our day.
Yeah, definitely. And we have to really fight for it because there's so many things competing for our attention. I was reading something that moms of young children, they tend to have at least 2 or 3 devices that they're using simultaneously. So it's like they're streaming something on TV, then they're on their phone, doing like, online grocery shopping. And then they have their laptop if they're working, taking work home in the evenings, which I think is quite common for a lot of people. So there's this sense of always being on and always being plugged in. And so I think if you can take those 10, 15 minutes and commit to giving it a try, maybe you won't see immediate results 3 days in, but kind of committing to it, I think it'll make a difference in how we feel.
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
so grateful to you, and I'm really grateful. I'm happy to see a woman of color in the wellness space, because as I've been reading a lot of things, I've encountered not a lot of women of color. And I think when you talked about your mom being a single mom, and it made me think of my mom. My mom became a single parent when my parents divorced. And I tell her now, I was like, Mom, I never saw you taking care of yourself. Because she tells me now I have a son, and she says, sometimes you need to like go take some time for yourself. Go get a massage. Don't feel guilty of taking an evening for yourself. And I said, well, Mom, you never really role modeled that for me. I don't know how you did everything you did. She had 4 children, and she goes, well, why do you think I tell you to do it? And so I think, especially for us women of color, like we shouldn't feel guilty about caring for ourselves. And so thank you so much. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you?
Yay. Well, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Devi Brown. That's DEVI Brown. Really on all my channels. So Instagram, if that's your thing, Twitter, Facebook, I'm on there as at Devi Brown. Also check out our website, karmabliss.com. Through karmabliss.com, like I have a bunch of different videos. We have some cool products like crystals. We have links to a lot of really, really interesting things in this space. And then my book, which is on sale now, is called Crystal Bliss. Thank you for all the kind things you said about it. I really, really strove to kind of create something that would demystify crystals and make it really applicable, especially to younger people who are kind of looking for specific things like career, love, emotional healing. I try to really create a book that would give you a little bit of history, a little bit of lore, some geology, and all of the great energy information. And it's available at bookstores near you. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, specialty stores, and also Amazon, where it's currently on sale and they deliver it Prime. So check it out there, Crystal Bliss.
This is actually, now that you say that, a great gift, because I can imagine if I would have known about these things when I was 18 and I was a college student, working, interning, taking a full course load. And if I would have had any practices to be able to take care of myself, I think I would have avoided some of the things that happened in my 20s. So I think this is a great gift for like a college student in your life or a young person to really kind of start getting into these practices at a young age. And I know I said I had no more questions, but I want to know, there's a lot of great mantras in your book. Is there a particular mantra that you always gravitate towards?
You know what I love? So for the book, for each of the crystals, we have a mantra that you can say with the crystal. I think we have around 54 of them.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Which are like really, really good, especially as you get started in your crystal journey, just having a deeper understanding that's kind of effortless and fluid. But also, like for me, I kind of just love the simple mantra of I am that. Because I like something I'm really striving for in my life is to be at such a complete surrender and peace with the flow of life and the flow of universe. And understanding that like we are not the roles that we play. We're not our titles. We're not the things that happen to us. We are pure energy and pure potential and love in every moment. So I love the really simple mantra of I am that.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing your platform with me. And this was awesome. Thank you for these incredibly introspective questions. I really appreciate your time.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us today. It means the world to me that you choose to spend your time with us. Don't forget to leave us a review or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on SoundCloud. You can also sign up for the weekly newsletter, The Currently, on my site, betsyaime.com, or follow me on Instagram, betsyaime, C as in cat. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, let's continue making sense of the now together. Talk to you soon.